If you're new to our channel, don't forget to hit the subscribe button.
Coming up on the program, we're going to start planting some peas. We'll use a man-made trellis and we'll use a little bit of nature. And we'll talk about pine straw or pine needles and how they can benefit you in the garden. All that and more coming up today on the Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener.
Sponsored by migardener.com, with over 450 varieties of non-GMO, heirloom, organic flowers, vegetables, and herb seeds, all for 99 cents. migardener.com.
Welcome to the Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener. I'm Joy Baird. We are finally in the garden. Some of you didn't think spring would come, but it has came, and we are getting ready to start planting. One of the first crops that we're going to plant is peas. Peas are a very hardy cool weather crop. They can withstand, their ideal temperatures is 55 to 70, but they can be in the ground as cold as 19 degrees Fahrenheit. So we're going to get them in early, get a jump start on them, and typically here in Zone 5A, we have peas by the end of June, 4th of July area, something like that. Take about 70 days to reach maturity, so hopefully we can get them a little quicker than that. So what we start out with here is last fall we brought leaves in from the neighborhood, or the street, our property, and covered our beds. The white piece here is white plastic, and it's just to differentiate the beds. We've got raised beds or distinct grow paths, or distinct grow areas and permanent walk paths, so we're not compressing the soil, or at least limiting the compression of soil that we have. So first thing we want to do is we're going to have to, one, pull this fence up a little tighter, keep the rabbits out. Secondly, we want to bring, and we're going to move back these leaves, and you can see under the leaves there is some vegetation. So we'll evaluate that, and we'll have to get in here and get some of these removed here. A lot of this is creeping Charlie, which is almost impossible to remove, but if we can get some of it removed, and then we do have some little trees here that we're going to have to dig up and get out of the way. So going to get all this moved out of the way, evaluate what we have, remove the surface weeds, and we will utilize the leaves here as mulch. You can see these were maple leaves here, and it's got maple spot on them, but that's not a problem. That's not going to infect anything in the garden. So we'll get the leaves moved back, remove the surface weeds, and then we'll go and get ready to plant. And there's several ways that we're going to plant these by using items you already have. You don't have to create any specific special trellis. We'll show you that in just a minute. All right, so we're working on here, move the leaves back, and I'm trying to do as minimal soil disturbance as possible. Now where you have to get in there, you have to get in there. We dug the tree up, the little chunk of tree that was there. Now I'll just show you what we're looking at here. It's got so many worms that are in here. Now, whenever I did this, whenever I flipped this soil up just like that, that exposes a lot of weed seeds that are now more apt to germinate. So the way it's working here, I've got metal tine rake, and the soil's damp enough, and these surface weeds, now I know I'm not getting all the roots, but I'm getting a large majority of the roots out, and then I can put it on the compost pile. But you can see these surface weeds, the roots are pulling out, and that's creeping Charlie is what that particular plant is, very invasive. And then I'll just throw it over on the compost pile and keep going, and that saves, one, a lot of work from digging the soil up, disturbing the soil, disturbing the microbial life, the worms, the soil web. But secondly, it makes it quick like that. And then we'll bring in the mulch that I've got here, the leaves. Once we do our rows, we'll fill in where the peas are not at, and then as the peas grow, we'll bring in and fill in around to add that mulch to prevent more weeds or suppress the weeds that we have. So we've got the surface weeds removed, we've got the mulch pulled back. Now the advantage of covering your soil when you're not using it during the off season or putting a cover crop on it or during winter like we have, you can see the soil, it just works very, very well. It's loose, it's fluffy compared to the soil that's up against the garage, which was an old bed that we removed the soil, and it's been exposed all winter long. You can see how it's cracked and it's discolored. It's not been covered. Doesn't look very good. Now, I don't know that that is less nutrient value than what we got in this bed here, but nature covers soil, and that's what we need to mimic as well. So I'm going to do 3 rows here. I've got my triangular hoe here that I'm just going to go down, an inch, or about an inch is what I would say we're good to. And we're going to plant our peas. Now, we've got a variety of different peas that we're going to plant. We've got some sugar snap peas. The Tom Thumb we're going to hold off and not plant in this garden because these are more of a container variety. They get very short and stocky, but they produce very, very heavy. So we'll hold off and not use them in the garden here. We've got some mammoth snow peas. We've got some blue shelling peas and some Lincoln peas. Now, with these peas, you can harvest them at any time. What we like to do is wait until they're full and plump in the pod and then harvest them that way. So we're just going to go, we'll start with the Lincoln peas here. And it works the same for all the varieties of peas that we've got. You can pre-soak these. We choose not to simply for the fact of I'm not sure, and I'm not going to sit down and do the math to go, I need 92 seeds in order to do this bed, so I need to soak 92 seeds in water for 12 hours, 24 hours. We just go ahead and put them in the ground, and the soil is nice and hydrated, moist, so it's going to help the seeds germinate quicker. But you can soak them if you have if you know exactly how many you're going to need. So come over here, and I'll show you how we're going to do this. We got a lot of worms around here. All I'm going to do is just drop them about 2 inches apart, about 3 there, 2 to 3 inches apart, and go all the way down the row. And that's simply how easy it is to plant peas. Peas can be done in a container, grow bag. Whatever device you choose to use, we need to trellis our peas, and that's the next step once I get done planting them. Okay, so we've got them planted here. Now all I'm going to do is take the back of the rake here and cover the seeds over. You don't have to worry about it if you get a 1/2 inch too much of soil on them or a 1/4 inch not enough, but we do want to get them covered because they do need that in order for them to sprout. Now you can firm them down here. I'll just push them in, cover them up. Doesn't have to be complicated. There we go. And you could fertilize at this point if you so choose to. Peas will fix nitrogen in their roots, so you don't have to worry too much about that. And then if you have poor soil, you can add some fertilizer as well. Okay, so those are planted. Now before I put the trellising in, I know where the rows are at, so I'm just going to drape some leaves in between the rows, not on the actual plants themselves, because I do want them to come up without a whole lot of restriction or resistance. If I do get some on there, the rows, that's fine. I'm just trying to create a cavern here where the peas will grow, and then I can easily bring this mulch over. So I'll do that, and then we'll talk about trellising. All right, so we've got that done. If there are some leaves over the rows where the peas are going to come up, they will push through the leaves. It's just not, you don't want 6 inches of matted leaves on top of your seed bed. So a couple of ways in which we can trellis. We can take saplings or limbs that we trim out of our tree, and we can bend them over and kind of make an archway. Peas will grow up both sides. This one actually works a little better. I can get a couple of different, I can get on 2 rows here. Oh, come back here. Okay. Push it down, fairly good. Now the peas can grow up both sides. It's important to have a trellis on these peas, on any peas, because the stems are not very strong. And if the pea begins to grow It's going to get top heavy with the foliage and the peas and the blossoms, and it's going to fall over and crimp the stem, and the plant's going to die. So we need something for it to go up and grasp onto in order to support itself. If you don't have limbs or you don't want to go that route, you can take fence posts. And we'll go fence post here. They don't have to be, you know, major cattle fence posts, just the cheap ones you get online or at your big box store. And then we can take string or jute rope or whatever you have available. We can run it back and forth about 3 tiers, about 6 inches, 12 inches, 18 inches, and if you want to go higher, you can go higher. We've had peas get 5.5, 6 foot tall before, so trellises make a tremendous difference, and you can harvest farther into the season because the plants keep producing. You have to harvest them as well. So that's a real quick down and dirty way of starting planting your seeds and using trellising to get them up off the ground. We are going to foliar feed our garlic, and we're going to use the Ivy Organic 6 Macros Plus. Now this has 12% nitrogen, 12% potassium, 13% phosphorus, 1% magnesium, 3% sulfur, and 3% calcium in it. So that's 6 different elements in which you typically don't get that type of variety in a normal bag of fertilizer. Now we can dry apply this to the garlic, but it takes 60 to 90 days for it to break down to a usable form. So what's our other option? We can dissolve it in water. We can mix it in with water, and that will allow the plants to be more readily available to pick it up much quicker than that 60 to 90 days. So we want to follow the recommendations on the back of the package, and you get a mixture of a variety of different elements there. So we could just pour it in, try to mix it up that way, but what we find is if we add some water to the cup and then stir it up, get it more broke down a little bit here. You can see now it's going to be able to be more easily distributed among the water here. Get the rest of it out of here. Then we do want to stir it up in here. Now before I go apply this to the garlic, we got a problem with the garlic that we got to fix. So we're going to side dress our garlic, but before we do that, we've got to address an issue that we've experienced here. We've got garlics being pushed up out of the ground. You can see here, that's the bulb in which we or the clove. That's the clove we planted. This one here, we planted that. Now we planted these last October, and we put them down about 2.5 to 3 inches in depth. And for whatever reason, they have pushed themselves up out of the ground. Now we don't cover our garlic. We have never covered our garlic, and we found great success from not doing such. So what we're going to do before we side dress, we're going to take our triangular hoe here, and basically I'm going to hill up around the garlic. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hill it up just like we would potatoes if you're doing it in the ground. Just going to throw dirt on both sides of the garlic. If I cover the greens up, that's fine, they'll pop through. But I got to get the clove up under the ground in order for it to develop. It's not going to develop above the ground. So once we get that done, then we'll talk about how we side dress the garlic. So you can get the Ivy Organics at ivyorganics.com. It's good for fruit trees, vegetables, ornamental trees, roses, and flowers with the beneficial microbes and mycorrhizae in the mixture, which is something a lot of fertilizers do not have in them. Now, they do have other products that you can use for your garden, fruit trees, spraying your vegetables to prevent sunburn and sun scald. You can certainly check that out. So now that we've hilled our garlic over to get it back deep, we're just going to touch and water each sprout just enough to hydrate. Now again, you can do a granular application, but it will take 60 to 90 days to break down. This just allows the uptake of all the beneficial nutrients that Ivy Organics has much quicker for the garlic to develop. So now is the time to feed your garlic to get them jump started, give them an energy boost here at the beginning of spring. So what we'll do, or might do here, I'm still undecided, we may come in and bring mulch and mulch this. We don't normally mulch our garlic ever because we found that it does very well with our cold temperatures, and they do need a cold cycle and not to be too cold, not to be buried too deep with the mulch. So we may come in mulch just to hold moisture in and suppress weeds, or we may just leave it as is and let it develop. But I'm concerned that they kept pushing out of the ground, so that may be an option that we exercise. So when it comes to mulches in your garden, pine needles, or pine straw as the industry calls it, may be one that you look past because of rumors or myths that you've heard about it. Now, true enough, pine needles on the tree are acidic. They're about a 3.5 on the scale of acidity. But when they fall on the ground and by the time they neutralize or break down into a usable soil, they neutralize to a 7, which is where we want our vegetable garden soil to be on the pH scale. So what we can do with this, it's an incredible mulch that takes a number of years to break down. This here I brought over from across the street last fall when the neighbor was cleaning out his garden, and they put a lot of leaves and pine needles on the curb for city pickup. Well, this is very, very important to me, and it makes very good mulch. It's a very dense but porous application which we can put around our tomatoes or whatever, peppers, whatever we're planting. It holds moisture in, really thick, so it will reduce the amount of weeds coming up, and it looks just like horsehair, this particular variety of pine needles. So just because you have pine needles, now if you can use them in your garden. Now, one thing you want to be cautious about is if you do have a pine tree, they drop their needles a lot. There's a good amount of needles under a pine tree. You don't want to rake all of them to the soil as bare. Nature provides a certain amount of barrier for the tree by dropping its own needles around its root system. So we don't want to scrape it down to bare soil. We want to leave some, but you can remove a good amount and still have enough for the tree but benefit you as well. So these will take a number of years to break down, and they will serve a great purpose as mulch in our garden. Thanks for joining me. Join me again next time for more organic gardening and planting, harvesting, and garden tips. I'm Joy Barrett, and this has been the Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener.
For more information, please visit thewisconsinvegetablegardener.com.